Week one's finally here, folks. Finally here. And today, we're not just talking about the biggest games of the week. We're talking about the players who make those games matter. Every year, week one gives us a few answers. Which transfers are real? Which young quarterbacks are ready for a bigger role? Which quarterback took a step forward in the offseason? Which defensive backs are about to come household names? And which draft prospects are about to put the rest of college football on notice? Now, I know it's not week one, it's week 0 for you diehards, but they're calling it week one, and week one's 2 weeks long now, so we're just going with it. Today, we're looking at 4 week one games: North Carolina, TCU, NC State, Virginia, New Mexico State, Florida State, and Memphis, UNLV. I've got players to watch on every single lineup. Some are NFL draft names, some are transfer portal swing pieces, and some are just young breakout guys that I think are going to do big things. But before we get into that, make sure you hit the like button, follow along, subscribe, and keep putting in that work here at Draft Yoda. As always, everything college draft that we can do, we are going to do it because we just love it. Game one, we're going to break down North Carolina versus TCU for those able to place bets. Unfortunately, I'm in a state where I cannot legally place bets, but if you're able to, putting a lot of money down on TCU would not be a bad thing to do. It is the best game on this list from a pure player watch standpoint. North Carolina, TCU. You have TCU bringing in a Harvard transfer quarterback, proven TCU receiver who's ready to make some noise. You've got some defensive talent on both sides. And you've got North Carolina trying to show what this new version of the program, what this new version of the program can become. First up is we'll start with some North Carolina players. DeAndre Robinson, defensive tackle for North Carolina. Real interior body, in 2025 had 39 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, half a sack, forced a fumble. Not a superstar stat line, but a useful interior resume. And against TCU, interior disruption is going to matter. North Carolina can't affect Jaden Craig from the middle. TCU's passing game is going to get comfortable quickly, and that is a problem. Another player to watch for North Carolina, Mason Humphrey, a wide receiver. 6'4", 215 pounds, comes from Lehigh. 35 catches, 651 yards, 4 touchdowns, averaged 18.6 yards per reception. He's a big body, but he's not catching just check down passes. He's a playmaker. He can create some chunk plays. And against TCU, I want to see whether that size and vertical production translates from Lehigh to a more prominent conference. For TCU, I've got a couple guys here for you to watch. We'll start with the transfer quarterback, Harvard graduate, Jaden Craig, one of the most interesting quarterbacks for this first week. Came to TCU from Harvard. In Harvard in 2025, he threw for 2,869 yards, 25 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Led Harvard to a strong run. Harvard is not where you first think of for a football powerhouse, but they were doing some things at their level. And Jaden Craig was a big part of that. Now against North Carolina, I get to see what he does against the next step up and a couple steps up in, competition. I want to see pocket comfort. I want to see how fast he handles the pressure. I want to see, whether he can attack outside the numbers against power forward defensive backs. It's a massive tone-setting game for TCU and for Jaden Craig. And somebody that should be very helpful for him is Jordan Dwyer, TCU wide receiver. It's one of the biggest reasons why I think Craig is going to hit in 2026. Dwyer in 2025 had 54 receptions, 730 yards, and 7 touchdowns. This exact matchup a year ago, he had 9 catches, 136 yards, and a touchdown against North Carolina. And that's kind of what I want to see from him again. I want to see you, when North Carolina knows your name, knows you're coming, I want to see what you can do. You're on the Balishnikov Award preseason watch list. So clearly TCU sees something in you, and I want to see how the chemistry has developed between Craig and Dwyer. Have they got a connection right away? Because if they do, TCU's offense might not need a warm-up time to get rolling. But it's not just about their offense. They've also got Jamel Johnson at safety. One of the best defensive backs in this game. Started every game in 2025, became a major piece for the TCU defense, and he's already getting preseason recognition with watch list attention. For this game, Johnson matters because North Carolina needs explosive plays, and if the Tar Heels want to hit Mason Humphrey downfield and attack the seams, Johnson is one of the players who is going to be able to erase those chances. So I really want to see where he aligns, how often he rotates late. I want to see that chess game between the safety and the quarterback to see how he can keep them out of rhythm. Next game up is NC State versus Virginia. Obviously, the big name in this one is CJ Bailey, quarterback from NC State, 6'6", 3,105 yards, 25 touchdowns, 9 interceptions last season. He's hard to miss in the NC State games. He added 6 rushing touchdowns. For Bailey, week 1 is about proving he can go from a productive ACC quarterback to a true draft watch quarterback. And against Virginia, I want to see command. Can he control protections? Can he hit explosive plays? Can he avoid the bad turnover that he ran into so much last season? And can he make the easy throws look easy? Because some of the checkdowns last year looked a little stressed. And I want to see improvement on that for CJ Bailey's draft profile moving forward. Another NC State player is King Mack, transferred from Penn State. Before that, he was at Alabama. 2025 at Penn State, had 58 tackles. Strong coverage corner, put up roughly 500 snaps for Penn State. It's the exact kind of defensive player that NC State needed, and it's important because Virginia has receivers who can test spacing and physicality. And Mack is going to give NC State a defensive back who can clean up the back end, trigger downhill, and help prevent explosive plays. The thing I'm watching is how quickly he, looks comfortable in the NC State defense. It's a change of pace. It's a change of scheme, change of communications. I just want to see how he adapts to that. For Virginia, Monroe Mills, offensive tackle, brings some serious experience. Played for multiple programs, Texas Tech, Louisville, and now he's at Virginia. 2024 was all ACC recognition at Louisville. PFF had him at an 82.3 grade, allowed just 1 sack on 300 pass opportunities. That's a decent resume. And NC State's got some guys that can make a push and make some pressure. I just want to see how Mills stands up. If he wins his side, Virginia can run their offense. If NC State beats him, the Cavaliers are going to be stuck behind the chains for the entire game. Rico Flores Jr., wide receiver for Virginia, is another player I'm watching. It started at Notre Dame, caught 27 patches, 392 yards as a freshman in 2023. Spent some time in UCLA and now he's at Virginia. Got a high level experience. Question is whether Virginia can turn that experience into a steady wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 production. And against NC State, I want to see if Flores can win on schedule. Can he separate? Can he make contested catches? And can he be an answer for them on third down? Another player for Virginia is Cam Robinson. Cam is a linebacker. As a freshman in 2023, had 71 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 2 interception. He looked like a real 3-down linebacker, not just a downhill thumper. He can find the ball and make plays in coverage. And when Robinson is right, he gives Virginia range and instincts in the middle of the defense. I just want to see how he plays against CJ Bailey. CJ can stress you in multiple ways, and I want to see how Robinson reacts to that in particular. Next up is the New Mexico State-Florida State game. For me, it's essentially 2 players I want to see for Florida State. Duce Robinson. Duce is a kid that kind of wish it transferred from Florida State, if I'm being completely honest. I would have loved to see him with a really dominant quarterback that could use him. It's a massive receiver. Caught 56 passes, 1,081 yards, and 6 touchdowns last season. First team All-ACC, third team All-American. He was a Balishnikov semifinalist. I want to see dominance against New Mexico State. Nothing against New Mexico State, but I want to see dominance. I want to see him win over the top. I want to see him win through contact. I want to see him show me he's one of the best receivers in America from the first quarter of week 1. And Florida State needs him to, because the other option they have is Trey Wisner, running back. Trey Wisner transferred from Texas. At Texas, he rushed for 1,734 yards, 9 touchdowns, 66 catches, 457 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. I think the receiving part of that matters because if Florida State can use him both as a runner and a pass game outlet, the offense gets easier for them. And unfortunately, with their quarterback situation, they need to make it as easy as possible. I'm not super high on their young quarterback as he currently sits. I am drawing a blank on his name. But it is what Ashton Daniels. That was the name. Ashton Daniels. For both these players to do their things, Ashton needs to play good ball. But I'm not counting them down. I'm not putting anything against them if Ashton Daniels doesn't play good ball. I don't trust Ashton Daniels super high right now. Unfortunately, when I saw him at Auburn, I was not super impressed. And now he's at Florida State, and he has an opportunity. Let's go there. He has an opportunity, and he's got talent around him. I just need him to produce. 6'2", he's right at the cusp of being a small quarterback. He is a senior. 233 pounds, so I'm not scared of him getting hurt too badly. But last year at Auburn really kind of put a sour taste in my mouth. I liked some of his film at Stanford, but Auburn kind of put a bad taste in my mouth for him. I don't really have anybody from New Mexico State, unfortunately. Haven't gotten a lot of film on them yet, so I'm excited to see New Mexico State and see kind of who they are, and if there's any diamonds in the rough at New Mexico State that we haven't really, pulled up against. The last matchup that I'm excited to watch this first weekend is Memphis versus UNLV. The game's going to be a fun game. Memphis has defensive backs all over my watch list. UNLV has a quarterback and an edge rusher. And the story's pretty simple, can Memphis disrupt Jackson Arnold? And can Jackson Arnold find rhythm and, rehab himself at UNLV? So that's the question. I will start with UNLV, Jackson Arnold. Transfer, started his career at Oklahoma, went to Auburn. Now taking that SEC experience to UNLV, he threw for 1,309 yards, 6 touchdowns, added 311 yards rushing, and 8 rushing touchdowns last year for Auburn. Rushing value is very important with this game. But the big question is decision making. Can you stay on schedule? Can you avoid forcing throws? Can he use his legs without, becoming run first? And can he make Memphis pay, if their safeties get too aggressive? That's a huge question. The other UNLV player is edge rusher Tunmise. He's their edge rusher. Adeleye. I'm going to hope that's how he says his last name. Produced 49 tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, 3 pass breakups, and 6 quarterback hurries in 2025. Honorable mention is an All-Mountain West. He was an honorable mention for All-Mountain West. He's got good production for that level, and I want to see if he can win early against Memphis, and add a level of stress to the Memphis offense that will help UNLV. If Memphis has to chip him, slide to him, change the timing of the passing game, all that helps UNLV. I also want to see if he can be a tone setter for their defense, because I've got UNLV circled as one of those that needs a tone setter. So I'm really curious if he can be the guy. For Memphis, you're going to hear a lot about these defensive backs. You've got Kamari Wilson. He was the number 18 overall prospect coming out of high school in 2025 with Memphis. 84 tackles, 6.5 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions, 4 pass breakups, 2 forced fumbles. He can tackle, he can trigger, he can create takeaways, and he can be used all around the line of scrimmage. Against UNLV, he matters because Jackson Arnold is the quarterback, and Jackson Arnold can use his legs. And Wilson has to be controlled but aggressive. If he over pursues, which he has had an issue with in the past, Arnold is going to punish him. If he's been able to work on that this offseason, that's going to be it's going to be very important to the game plan for Memphis. The other safety, Bracy, had 81 tackles, 9.5 tackles for loss, 1 interception, 9 pass breakups, and a forced fumble last year. Very active safety profile. The 9.5 tackles for loss really jumps out. It tells you Memphis can use him aggressively. He's not just sitting deep waiting for throws. He can come downhill and affect the run game. Against UNLV, I want to see how Memphis uses both of these safeties. If Wilson and Brace are flying downhill, can they make life difficult on UNLV's run game? And if they make it difficult on the run game, can they still cover while making it difficult on the run game? Another thing that'll help them with that is Ellis Jr., cornerback for Memphis. He's a smaller corner, 5'9", 181 pounds. And at that size, the game is about quickness, leverage, and confidence. And I want to see how he tackles on the perimeter. Can he stay sticky underneath? Can he challenge throws without giving up, size mismatches? And is he one of the players in week 1 that we start talking about quickly? Because if Ellis can get his hands on a couple balls in this game, his name is going to be one of the names that really pops from this first week of college football. Who are you watching in week 1? That's me. That's who I'm watching. Those are the players I'm watching. These are the games I'm watching. Who are you watching week 1? Which player from these games do you think is most likely to explode? which matchup do you think tells most about 2026 college football season? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoy these, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, follow along, because we're going to keep putting in work here. We've got player profiles that we do for the NFL draft. We do a lot of college football stuff. We've got some stuff lined up with a couple different entities that we're working on with right now. Hopefully we'll be able to bring you more college football and maybe even some sideline video from college football games. But as always, I'm Draft Yoda, Bill Workman, your favorite draft nerd's favorite draft nerd. And we'll catch you guys in the next one.